Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the third tutorial in the FBIS training series. Today, our focus is going to be on spatial layers. You'll probably remember from the first tutorial that we had a brief look at the spatial layers using this tab here. And in the second tutorial, we familiarized ourselves with the different filtering options, of which there is quite a substantial list of spatial filtering options. Now, just to remind you that these spatial filters are a subset of the layers that we're going to be looking at in today's tutorial. So some of the spatial layers that we'll look at are purely for visualization purposes, but others are also available as spatial filters in the filter tab. So by opening the layer selector tab, you can see all the different spatial layers that are available for visualizing data on the FBIS platform. Now, there are a few really cool features of this layer tab that I'd like to walk you through today. So the default on FBIS is that the sites layer and the rivers layer are selected, which you can see on the map here. The rivers are all shown in blue for South Africa, and the sites are shown in yellow. But there are a wealth of other layers that aren't turned on by default, but that can be activated to aid the search and to also help create the desired visual map that can be then downloaded using the print map icon here on the left. All right, so just a quick walkthrough of the different layers available on the FBIS. There's a protected areas layer, which gives all the protected areas for South Africa. There are water resource areas. There are dams for South Africa, geomorphological zones, which are also a filter. There are freshwater ecoregions of the world, water management areas, subwater management areas, river management units, and then the different levels of catchment from primary through quinary. There are the two different levels of ecoregion. There are national critical biodiversity areas. There are the INFIPA layers that can be visualized. There are the national ecological support areas, fish sanctuaries, and other FIPA layers, the ground water source areas, LADA land use classes, hydrological regions, also by flow type, and the thermal framework layers. And you will also notice that next to each of the layers, there's a little blue information button. And clicking on that opens up a tab below the layer, which includes details about the layer, where it comes from, what data are included in the layer, etc. So if you have any doubt about what layer it is you're working with, it's that little blue info button that will helpfully give you the answer to that. All right. So the first step in using the layer selector is turning layers on and off. And this is really, really simple. This is just done by clicking that layer, and clicking it automatically turns that layer on. And what you'll notice here is that if we maybe zoom into one particular area, let's zoom into this area here, close to the Roodepoort Dam. For those of you that don't know, if you hold Shift and use your mouse or your touchpad, you can zoom in to a particular part of the map. So here we can see the protected area layer of South Africa shown in these different colored polygons, but you can also see the sites and rivers, or the rivers and then the sites in that order on top of the protected areas layer. And the order in which the layers are shown actually corresponds to the order that they are shown in the layer selector. So for example, you can actually select and drag layers up and down depending on which layer you'd like to have on the top and which layer you'd like to have on the bottom of your map view. So for example, if I drag the sites layer down below protected areas, we'll no longer see the sites over that protected area. They'll be under that protected area polygon. So let me drag that back up. And similarly, the rivers could be dragged down and then they'll disappear from that protected area because they're now being shown underneath it. All right. What you can also do on the map interface when a layer is selected is actually just click on that layer, and that'll give you some basic information about that layer in a little pop-up that comes up. And this, it gives you the layer name, and then it just gives you attributes for that layer as well. And these will vary depending on the layer of interest. But yeah, it just gives you breakdown of key attributes, for example, the date, the name, etc. All right. So another useful tip when using the layer selector is you can adjust the opacity of a layer. So if we activated another layer, for example, the strategic water sources of South Africa, as well as protected areas, and then use the little minus button at the top here to zoom out in our map, we now have two different layers selected. Water source areas, as well as protected areas. So if we again zoom into a part of our map, let's say the Cape Peninsula and Greater Cape Town area, we can see that this might look a little confusing, but if I toggle the water source areas on and off, you can see that these two layers are actually being shown one on top of another. Once again, if I slide the water source areas layer up, then it'll be shown on top of the protected areas. So I'll drag that down again. And yeah, another useful tool is to you are able to adjust the opacity of the different layers on FBIS. So say you may want to see your protected areas layer, but still see what other layers are available underneath it. Then you can use this opacity slider to reduce that opacity. And in particular, if I zoomed in on this little area here, you can see underneath this protected areas layer, the Haberkras Mountain catchment area, protected area, that there is also this pink water source area, the Boerland strategic water source area underneath it. And that's where the layer opacity adjustments become really, really useful. And another useful tip when you have more than one layer selected is the ability to toggle between the information tabs for the two different layers. So if you had to click at a part of the map where the two layers intersect, then you can see first up comes the protected areas layer and the attributes for that layer, because that's the top layer. But underneath that is the strategic water source areas, in this case, the surface layer. And you can then toggle into that to access the data for that layer as well. And finally, if one was to zoom out, and if you wanted to print this map view showing all of these sites, your two layers that you've selected, maybe with an opacity adjustment, you could then just quickly go to the print map button, and that'll print your map and save it as a file on your machine. So that's it for the tutorial on the layer selector. And in the next tutorial, we're going to start looking at the dashboards, the different kinds of dashboards that can be used to further explore the biodiversity data. Thanks very much, and see you next time.